Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. That's right, we're dusting off the old PlayStation 2 for this one. Now this game did receive a remaster as part of the Jak collection for the PlayStation 3. I never picked that one up though, so I am playing my original saga. Jak and Daxter is a 3D action platforming collectathon. The premise of this game is Jak and Daxter are both these, they're kind of human, but they have really long pointy ears, almost like exaggerated elf ears. So I'm not sure exactly if they are human, but they are wandering around this mysterious island, and Daxter gets knocked into some dark eco and gets turned into this weird ferret looking thing. And so through the advice of the green sage who lives in their village, they set out to find the wise sage named Goal to see if he understands how to revert the process and turn him back to his humanoid figure. Along the way, the green sage recommends that they stop by all the other sages' huts because their teleporters have been shut off mysteriously. You can definitely tell that there's a lot of essence of Crash Bandicoot in this game, as it is made by the same people, Naughty Dog. And so the premise of Crash Bandicoot, but in a 3D platforming collectathon, sounds very promising, and it definitely delivers. It's like the perfect blend of cartoony silliness, but with like edgy coolness. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that this first game is edgy, but it's definitely like a step above something super cutesy like Mario. Just in terms of like world design and enemies. As you are wandering across the land in search for Gaul, you will be encountering lots of resources just like any good collectathon, mostly in the form of precursor orbs and power cells. Now, there are 101 power cells in the game. They kind of act like the gate in order to progress to the next main central area, similar to something like stars in a Mario game. Precursor orbs are a lot more plentiful, and you basically use them to purchase power cells from the villagers. And I love the villagers in this game. Each and every one of them is so unique and expressive, and their design is so out there, and in terms of like fluid movement and personality, like I just love talking to each one of these villagers because they all stand out in their own unique way. You can tell that they all have their own backstory and their own characteristics. It's not often in a video game where I like to talk to the NPCs to get the side quests. Not only are you turning in precursor orbs to these villagers to get power cells, you're also fulfilling little menial tasks like redirect the power back to the village or hit all the yaks back into their barn. This also introduces many mini games like ward off all the little rats coming up to the bait, which I'm terrible at doing, by the way. This game sometimes requires you to aim, and all of the controls are inverted, including the camera controls, which I eventually got used to, but I'm so used to not having inverted controls, and as far as I could see in the options, there's no way to toggle that on or off, at least in the PlayStation 2 version, and so you kind of have to get used to it. I struggled a little bit with those particular mini games. In addition to precursor orbs and power cells, you'll also be looking for 7 scout flies in each major area. Once you find 7 scout flies, you will also get a power cell for your efforts. This game does not have like a traditional level select, something like Crash Bandicoot. Rather, it is a bunch of separate stages, quote unquote, but they are all interconnected and you're able to freely walk amongst them. In fact, sometimes you are kind of required to because certain eco vents are activated from other spots in the world, and you may need to remove certain obstacles or do certain things in one section of the world before you have access to everything on the other section. This was kind of tedious because there is no level selection, and so if you do find out that you aren't able to 100% complete this particular stage, then you kind of have to backtrack once you do release those eco vents. Now, what am I talking about when I talk about eco vents? Well, besides the dark eco that Daxter fell into, normally dark eco will immediately kill you, but there is a lot of beneficial eco as well. For instance, there's green eco, which is going to heal you. You're given a maximum of 4 hits before you have to restart back to the checkpoint, and you can collect this green eco in order to replenish your health. I find they are a little stingy with the green eco. One big green eco will heal you 1 hit point, but you need to collect 50 small green eco in order to regenerate a hit point as well. I don't know, I feel like it takes a really long time to collect 50 small ecos. Luckily enough, if you do die, then it's not not too big of a deal having to restart back to the checkpoint. The most annoying part is just all the enemies happen to respawn in your way. And this isn't like Spyro where you have to defeat each enemy in order to get a resource, and so you are able to skip most of them unless they are directly in your path. There's also blue eco, which basically energizes you and magnetizes you, so it sucks in all of the other eco towards you. Precursor orbs as well, scout flies, it just makes you run really fast. It does not make you invincible, however. You can also use blue eco kind of as an action puzzle type of situation where you have to kind of like run really fast once you get charged up with blue eco to an old precursor relic in order to reactivate it. Usually this is in the form of like moving platforms or opening doors or a little storage compartment full of precursor orbs. There's red eco, which makes you hit super strong. This one was kind of pointless in my opinion. Like most enemies were defeated in 1 or 2 hits anyway. And I think that Naughty Dog knew this because they really didn't utilize red eco in a meaningful way. The coolest eco is the yellow eco, which allows you to send out projectiles, which is very fun unless you have to aim in the first person view. In addition to just typical 3D action platforming, you also have access to a couple different vehicles. There's like one hover bike that you have to ride across certain tracks with a certain speed, and you have to like avoid overheating on it. And then there's also like a giant bird that you can ride and do some extreme platforming over long distances because he can like kind of flap his wings. You're on the motorbike a lot more than you are on the giant bird. As far as like Jack's own controls, he's got his little jab forward. He can do a spin like Crash Bandicoot, albeit not nearly as fast. But this is pretty beneficial in terms of like when you're platforming, you can kind of do the spin to give you a little bit more altitude and make it a little safer to platform over long distances. He also has a really long jump, similar to Mario's butt slide jump, where you kind of like drag on the floor, then launch yourself forward. Jack will do a little somersault and then launch himself forward. You have to be pretty committed to the roll though. You can only jump after the roll is finished, and I have killed myself more than I'd like to admit just rolling off the ledge before I could actually activate that long distance jump. He can also double jump or do like a super tall single jump. And as far as platforming goes, this game is pretty stingy in terms of what type of platforms you can interact with and what ones they do not want you to interact with. Because if you get a little sneaky and you try to do little shortcuts, hop over certain landmarks to get to other areas, there are a ton of hidden walls here. They definitely intend for you to go the intended pathway. Don't try to get sneaky or tricky here. And even if you think that you can jump on a particular piece of land and they don't intend you to be able to interact with that land, you'll pretty much just slide off and die. Although if you are pretty snazzy with your platforming skills, there are certain sections where you can kind of skip certain areas if you don't care about getting all the collectibles or if you are trying to get back to where you were before you died. Speaking of dying, Jack is kind of like the silent protagonist. The amount of times that he makes noise is similar to something like Link from The Legend of Zelda. He attacks, he makes yells and grunts when he gets hit and things like that. But the funniest thing is when he falls, it's like the most half-hearted yell ever as you're falling off a giant cliff. It's just, He doesn't put a lot of fear into plunging to his death. The really chatty person is going to be Daxter, and he's kind of the comedic relief here. He's got the perfect cartoony voice, and it just fits his ferret model perfectly. I love both of these guys' friendships here, and you can really see that they enjoy being with each other and interacting with each other. Mostly it's Daxter making jabs at Jack, and then Jack just kind of smiles with his eyebrow raised or whatever. But like every time you get one of these power cells, there's this cool little animation that they do where they tuck that power cell away and like grin at each other. I love their cheesy grins, and I could watch those animations over and over again. It's so satisfying whenever you get that power cell and seeing a silly little animation of Daxter doing a dance or something. And I just love exploring these worlds. Now, I wouldn't say that they stand out too much in terms of environment. The coolest thing about this game is the precursors themselves, which is like an ancient technological race that is mysteriously gone, but all their tech still remains, and so you can kind of interact with it all. My favorite stage is where you go under, it's almost like an Atlantis city, deep under the water, and you are like interacting with all this old Precursor machinery. Other than exploring that deep city, I would not recommend going into the deep water at all, because this is kind of their way of getting you to not go too far into the wide open water. Whenever you do navigate into deep water, you'll start hearing this heart-thumping noise, and then a giant fish will just come up and eat you. And it is terrifying. Like, if you're doing platforming over deep water and you accidentally fall in the water, that heartbeat will immediately trigger, and you just want to get out of the water as fast as you can, because it is scary getting eaten by that giant fish. I did 100% complete this game. That means I got all of the Precursor orbs, all the power cells, all the scout flies. There's 101 power cells total. I can't remember how many Precursor orbs there are. The reward for doing this is very, very underwhelming. Basically, at the end of the game, you encounter this giant Precursor door, and they're like, oh, we need 100 power cells to open up this door. And you go and you get all 100, even 101 if you're feeling extra completionist, and then the doors open, but you don't see what's inside. It's just like a blinding light, and the character's like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful, I can't believe it. And then the credits roll, and it's like, really, that's it? You're not even going to give me an alternate costume or anything? Now, if you are curious what's behind that giant door, just go ahead and start up Jak 2, because it starts right off after they open that door. 100% completing this game wasn't too difficult at all. It is a fairly short game. This is definitely one of those scenarios where a game felt so much bigger as a child, and now that I come back to it as an adult, it feels minuscule. I just remember spending like hours and hours and hours playing this game as a kid, and I was able to beat it 100% in maybe 7 hours tops. So if you are going to play this game, I do recommend getting 100%. Finding all the Precursor orbs and the power cells wasn't too tricky, albeit a couple exceptions, in which case you just pull up YouTube and just look at where you happen to miss those particular orbs. But I guess like the reward of 100% completing this game is the joy of getting to play it longer, which I kind of like. I like that it is a short, compact game, no filler. It's just 3D platforming goodness, just constantly getting that endorphin rush of getting your next power cell. Too often nowadays, games just feel like they need to bloat it because they feel like they need to increase the game time of it. Whereas like not every game needs to be that. It's awesome having a really fun 7-hour game to play every now and then. I did have to fight the camera a little bit, especially when I'm near like a wall or something like that. It's not playing nice with me, and so I have to manipulate it a little bit. Sometimes I will be doing some platforming and I can't see exactly where I'm jumping. Not as bad as some of the older 3D platforming games, but I don't think that they've quite perfected the camera action here. But the music is so good. Just like I said earlier, just hints of the Crash Bandicoot soundtrack, kind of jungly, some beats, some bongos, a little twangy guitar, banjo, a really, really great OST. Sometimes when you go back to games from your childhood, they don't live up to that expectation, but this game really did. It holds up, and now I am considering grabbing that HD collection on the PlayStation 3, at least for the other two, but we'll do a little bit of price checking and we'll see. Overall, I think I'm going to give this game a 5 out of 5, and if you haven't played this game yet, what are you doing? But then again, if you haven't, you probably opted for playing Ratchet and Clank or Sly Cooper on the PlayStation 2 instead, which both of those options, you wouldn't be wrong either way. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!
You've got to rescue my father before it's too late. And Jak, be careful.
Yeah, we will be.